It's my great pleasure to introduce Greg Davidson, the Chair of Geology and Geological Engineering at the University of Mississippi. His scientific specialties are in hydrogeology and geochemistry, with a dash of ecology for good measure. Any given day, you might find Greg waist deep in a cypress swamp, poking in the mud, or climbing a tree. He describes his upbringing as the odd and wonderful product of having two preachers for grandfathers and a biology professor for a father. A love of both science and scripture was infused from his earliest memories. He has become a frequent writer and speaker on science and Christian faith, with published books including Friend of Science, Friend of Faith, the team-authored book Grand Canyon, Monument to an Ancient Earth, and his soon-to-be-released Manifold Beauty of Genesis 1, which he co-authored with Old Testament scholar Kenneth Turner. When he's not teaching, writing books, or poking in the mud, he also dabbles in creative writing, weaving spiritual lessons into science fiction in his Mulligan trilogy. Greg is the husband of one kindred spirit wife, father of 4 children, and working up a requisition for grandkids. Please join me in welcoming Greg Davidson.
My story has a relatively odd beginning, growing up in a family with a biology teacher for a father and 2 preachers for grandfathers. My scientist father had a love for the Bible, and my preacher grandfathers had an appreciation for nature and science. If I had never stepped outside the circle of my family, I might never have even known that there was tension perceived between the two. Science and faith were simply friends. In fact, I enjoyed both so much, I decided as a senior in high school that I would study biology in college and then go to seminary to be a theologian. On my application to Wheaton College, I filled in biology as a prospective major. Upon arriving at college and filling out a similar form, I wrote geology. I am not a spontaneous person, and that was not a typo. Yet to this day, I have no recollection of what prompted that change. Yet I also have no regrets. It was a wonderful fit for my love for exploring natural processes, particularly those related to water. I soon felt a strong calling to shift my plans from seminary to pursuing a PhD in water resources at the University of Arizona, just a little south of where this meeting is being hosted. Beyond my home, I did begin to encounter the tensions that others experience between science and their Christian faith. I lost track of how many times someone would learn that I was a geologist and a Christian and ask, "So how does that work?" And I soon learned that responding with, "Quite well, actually," was not really a sufficient answer. As I engaged in those conversations, I found that many had a sense that God's natural creation and his written word shouldn't be in conflict. Yet voices of authority, whether professors or preachers, repeatedly told them a choice had to be made. With walls where bridges once stood, too many were choosing to leave the church or choosing to stay, but then isolating the flock from participation in the sciences. Recognizing the desperate need to restore those bridges made me realize why that high school kid who had thought he might want to be a theologian one day later felt called to a career in the sciences. God had placed me and others like me in a position to have a unique voice in the church. When I can start a conversation by telling fellow Christians about my own faith and journey, I earn the right to be heard on science. When I can tell still more stories from history, how the study of God's natural and written word interweaved to gain a greater wonder for both, hearts and minds begin to open to consider scientific data. Today, I still love mucking around in a cypress swamp, studying the interplay between water and soil and ecology. And I also marvel to see how God has brought me full circle, where my writing, speaking, and passion is equal parts science and theology.
Hello, I would like to introduce Dr. Jim Beiser. He is professor at U of A in the School of Natural Resources and the Environment and founding director of the Arizona Institutes for Resilience. Prior to the U of A, he was senior advisor to ASU President Crow and led the establishment of the Global Institute of Sustainability. From 1984 to 2003, he served as director of the Climate and Societal Interactions Office at the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in D.C. Dr. Beiser has published extensively on institutionalizing the science-to-action interface and integrating climate information into development decision processes. He received his degrees in oceanography, marine resource economics, and science policy from the University of Washington, Seattle. And at age 10, he read the Encyclopedia Britannica from A to Z, every page in Spanish. It's fair to say he has encyclopedic knowledge. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Beiser.
I grew up in the church as an MK, a missionary's kid in Chile, South America, as a son of an evangelical missionaries with two sisters and a younger brother. I've always been inquisitive about God's creation. Walking home from school as a kid, I'd pick up bees and capture them and hold them in a little box, and they would be my pets. My parents run a summer camp, so I'd spend every summer at a lake in Licantray, Chile. Always loved the outdoors. The mission that we were in, our church, which my dad pastored, were very constraining. Other than church, we were not allowed to do anything on Sundays, even go watch a soccer match or go to the movies or school dances. In 1964, Dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So in 1969, we moved to the US, Lyndon, Washington, where my dad was from. In 1984, my younger brother, Danny, died in a car accident. It was a terrible shock to the whole family. So all of this time, although I knew Christianity and all of its teachings, Christianity was all negative to me, all about the shalt nots, which included movies and rock and roll music. Through high school and college and into my years at NOAA, I became very rebellious. I questioned God, and really not from a scientific point of view, whether he existed or not, but why would he let Dad get Parkinson's and let Danny die in a car wreck? In 1990, I met Dee, originally from Thailand. She grew up as a Buddhist, but later became a Christian. We have two kids. Sean, and while he was in college at ASU, he went to Redemption. He invited us to come, and so we started going every Sunday to Redemption in Tempe. Then when we moved to Tucson, we helped start with Pastor David Goffney, Redemption Tucson. My love for science and discovery and stewardship has always been with me. I've had wonderful conversations with my hero, Catherine Hayhoe, a great climate scientist. Francis Collins is another scientist that I admire a great deal. I'm reading his book, The Language of God, right now. My discussions with scientific colleagues have included ones about Big Bang as creating the planet. And I tell them that belief in the Big Bang theory requires as much faith as believing that God created the planet. Science, to me, is God's gift to better understand his beautiful creation. So today, I thank God for the journey he has given me. I have a beautiful family with God at its center, a fulfilling job, and ample opportunities to share how much he means to me.